and good afternoon, and thank you all for the amazing support provided. To date, over 900,000 refugees fleeing Ukraine arrived in Romania, and from this number, approximately 90,000 are present in the country. Habitat Romania staff has been on the ground since immediately after the war started, and actually we managed to establish the border presence at two of the main entry points, namely in Siret up in the north and in Isaccea in the east, being among the first responders in the country. We've also deployed staffing capacity at the Bucharest main railway station as well as other refugee centers. The refugee needs change with time as we look at our three-phase plan that Rick shared. And the approach that we had since the very beginning was to be in the front line and to understand and listen to refugees. In a way, we wanted to make sure that what we deliver is what they say they need, not necessarily what we think they need. Let me give you some concrete example. When we traveled at the borders in the first day, we did not know exactly how we're going to help, but we listened. And most of the refugees asked us the following questions. First question was, where do I sleep tonight? And surprisingly, the second question that we heard was, do you know where I can charge my phone? Also, they were asking us to help them with their luggage because they were having their hands occupied with different items they have received from the many people who came there to help. In answer to the first question, just days later, we concluded a deal with Ibis and the entire Accor hotel group to provide free hotel accommodation. Many other hotels joined this Habitat network very fast. And to date, we have hosted over 1,800 people with a decent shelter on short term. This type of action actually continues even today, even though the need is much lower than at the beginning when the influx of refugee was massive. We are still having roughly 70 rooms now that we are renting on a weekly basis. In answer to the second question, the one with the phone, we also started immediately to distribute emergency travel kits consisting of a rucksack and power bank so that the refugees can have a place to put all their items and to charge their phones on the move, so to stay connected with their loved ones. This was incredibly appreciated by the refugees and still is actually. Just the other day, I was personally at the Bucharest train station distributing such kits for the refugees on the move. Another line of emergency response was to assist authorities with various items that in the first days they were needing urgently, and there were no stocks. Nobody knew exactly how to organize things at that time. An example was, as Rick shared, providing air heaters for the two tented refugee centers assembled in Siret and Isaccea. At the end of February, beginning of March, as you all remember, the temperatures were below zero. Actually, in the north, it was -10, -14 degrees. And it was snowing. Habitat support was instrumental. Basically, we managed to provide a warm overnight shelter for thousands of people so far. And as I mentioned, the refugees' needs changed with time. And if at the beginning there was a huge pressure on emergency shelter, now this pressure moved towards medium-term and longer-term housing. To address this changing need, we are now focusing on three main lines, mainly. First one is the subsidized or free rental accommodation. We have hosted so far more than 50 families on longer term in rented apartments or other rented buildings, designated buildings for the refugees. Secondly, we've been asked by the various authorities, local authorities or other organizations who administer refugee centers to help with refurbishments. There were many so-called empty spaces which did not have a full or proper use before the refugee crisis, and now those centers, those spaces, are used as refugee centers. Of course, these spaces need refurbishments to improve their habitability. Such an example is the dormitory of the dormitory from the Technical University of Construction in Bucharest. The university basically opened a former dormitory which hasn't been used for the past 5 years. 200 refugees are now hosted there, and we helped this center with the sanitary installation works and also to design and build a new kitchen and the dining room, which was very much used with the occasion of Easter this year. There are other centers, such as spaces where we help, and we have them in the plan for the future. And thirdly, but not least, is the advocacy. Habitat Romania is part of the two multi-sector governmental working groups that have been established to help the refugees, and we are supporting them with technical advisory related to shelter, and also with concrete proposals for the government to address the shelter need on the longer term. These three lines that are mentioned are actually the ones that Habitat Romania will focus in the months to come and in the future. I mentioned so far a lot of numbers. The sad reality is that behind any number, there is a tragedy. I've witnessed over this time tears, helplessness, fear, despair, but also hope. The past week, we helped Olena and her two daughters to find an apartment in Bucharest. They will stay there until the war is over. Milena is 13 years old. Her daughter is very talented at drawing. And since the conflict began, her drawings have very depressive meanings. I met Milena just 5 minutes ago before entering in this meeting. And she told me that this is the only way she can express her feelings. What you see in the left is her self-portrait, together with a simple message in Ukrainian, which I think many of you can guess. Stop the war. This form of expression through drawings, I noticed with many other children actually. One day our colleague from Siret border up in the north told us the story of a 6-year-old who stopped talking for many days. Instead, he started drawing. And the recurring drawing his mother showed us was a plane dropping bombs. We helped that family with accommodation. Before closing, I wanted to share with you a story of hope. Olena, 26 years old, another Olena this time, fled Odessa with her mother and grandmother. I will quote her with the exact words that she described the moments of leaving her home in Odessa. She says, "The war changed everything. The usual course of time came to nothing. First, you watch the news 24/7, then you even get used to the constant air alarms, and then you are forced to leave your home. Until recently, I did not even think that I would leave Odessa. But when the family demanded it, you must take matters into your own hands and do everything. We were on the road for 2 days before crossing the border. The Odessa region is the largest in the country. When you leave the city, only in fact you will know which block post works and which does not. We had to return many times and take different routes to the south, where is the border with the Republic of Moldova. The plan was to drive 50 kilometers through Moldova and then to the border with Romania." Olena then describes how she arrived in Romania and found accommodation for her mother and grandmother close to the border. And then surprisingly, she took another hard decision. She took the decision to move to Bucharest alone so that she can volunteer at the Bucharest train station. She wanted to be in service of her people. This is actually a picture made by Olena, because as she is also a professional photographer. And when she arrived in Bucharest, when she jumped off the train, she met Habitat for Humanity Romania staff who helped her with an apartment for a longer term where she stays now. Even more, now Olena is a Habitat Romania employee. She works as a humanitarian worker at the train station, fulfilling her dream of helping others the way she was helped. Olena is very optimistic and energetic. She's optimistic about the future, and she says, I will quote her again with her words. She says, "Every day at the station, someone laughs and cries. Someone loses and finds hope. Everything passes, and the war will too." Thank you.